you guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Calvin and Dominic Experience. I'm Calvin.
I'm Dominic.
And today we are going to talk about our coming out story. So, let's get into it. So, you want to go first? So,
Sure.
let's talk about, how was it for you coming out to your family? Do everybody know? How do your family feel about it? And maybe we tap into starting our family, having kids, and also we would dig into a little bit of how the world see us or how we view the world, dealing with our lifestyles. So,
okay. Well, I don't think my coming out story is like a true coming out story. Okay, well, I guess I'll start from younger. Like, I always felt like I was gay. Like, I always felt it in me. Since, I could honestly say I felt like I was born gay. I know some people say that, and they're like, oh.
Okay. Well, you kind of asked, I guess you kind of answered my question, because I think that was going to ask you. I was going to ask you that to see what was your on take into that, but go ahead.
Yes, I always felt like I feel like I was born gay. I've always found women pretty and beautiful, and if she got a nice body, it's nice.
Okay.
But sexually, it never did anything for me.
Okay. So you'll say you're still a virgin?
Yeah, I am. Okay. I am still a virgin.
Okay.
So, I guess growing up, I've always been to myself type of person. I always knew I was gay, so I didn't want to I always knew how other people viewed it, so I kind of always wanted to keep it to myself because
Right.
I didn't want them to throw those views on me. Yeah, like I said, I've been gay all my life. I had a few girlfriends and things like that, but I never had sex with them. The most it ever went was a kiss.
What?
But once I graduated high school, I started exploring being gay. I had a boyfriend when I was I guess 19 or 20 years old. I've never brought girls around hey, this is my girlfriend.
Okay.
Every time a girl came around, she was my best friend because that's truly what she was.
And I think that's another way of parents finding out if their child is gay or a lesbian or whatnot. For their son, if they never see their son bring a woman around or some type of female around, or hugging up on a female when they come around, and vice versa for women, not bringing guys around. But I think us as men, we get it the most. You never brought a girl home. You never went out, you never expressed your feelings about a girl or never took them on a date, stuff like that. But okay.
It's just to go back off of that, it's I know in high school, my sister wasn't pressuring me, but she used to always kind of ask me, oh, you got a girlfriend? When you gonna get a girlfriend? And my excuse used to always be oh, I'm just focused on school.
So let me ask you this. So do you think by your sister asking you that, do you think she had an idea?
Of course. I've always felt like people knew I was gay.
But they just didn't want to
accept
okay.
it, or, I feel like they were in denial.
Okay.
I feel like, just being honest, I just feel like growing up, I've always displayed the signs of being gay.
Okay. So all right, so when you said you always had the signs, was it being a little femme, or maybe, I guess in your mannerisms?
Yeah, I would say my mannerisms. I feel like that's what get me all the time, my mannerisms. My mannerisms, and then I think my voice isn't the hardest.
I guess because I'm around you constantly. I don't think so much of the voice, for my opinion, and maybe I can say that because I'm constantly around you versus somebody that don't see you as much. And then you start talking, maybe they might say, oh, okay, maybe, or if there's certain lingos or sayings that they use in the gay community, maybe something like that might come up and somebody might say, okay, I might have an idea that this person could be or maybe you know. But
I always feel like people knew. Like honestly, I always feel like my mom knew. I always felt like my sister knew because she was gay as well. But my mom used to have me doing like, as I would say, gay shit. You know, like going to the hair salon with her, going with her to get her nails done. When it's time for her to take her weave out, I'm the one that's doing it. It's
so
like,
so you trying to say you blame your mom?
I feel like she.
I'm living this lifestyle because of all the things she had to do.
Like my mom used to do hair and stuff like that, and I used to be like with her while she's doing hair and stuff like that. So,
Okay.
like I'm definitely a mama's boy. Even if I was a straight man, I think I still would be a mama's boy.
Mama's boy.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, saying all that said, I always felt like everybody knew. So I just know like the boyfriend that I had, we went on a trip to Orlando, and my mom knew I was hanging around a friend, but I never told her like if it was a guy, if it was a girl, or whatever the case may be. I never told her that. So when I went on the trip, I told her I was going with that friend. So when I got down there, I texted like, "Hey, mom, I made it safely." So she ended up calling me, and she was like, I got a question. And I'm just like...
So while you was on this trip?
While I was on this
like
trip.
Away?
Yeah.
Okay.
She was like, I got a question. And I was like... Oh, and by this point, I had been in a relationship with this person for about a year.
Okay.
So, she's like, I got a question. I'm just like, yeah. She's like, you got a boyfriend? No, she's like, is your friend a man? That's what she said. That's what she said. She said,
well, by that time, you already knew what...
Yeah, she was like...
She was going towards.
Yeah, she was like, is your friend a man? And then I was just like... Yeah. She hung up the phone. She hung up the phone. I was just like, oh my God. So I went back in the room. And I'm just like... Because we had got a hotel in Orlando. And I'm just like, oh my God, my mom is like devastated. I feel like she's devastated. So she ended up calling... My sister ended up calling me. And she was like, you should have never told Mom. She's so heartbroken right now because she feel like she's not going to have any grandchildren and stuff like that because my sister is also gay. So it's just like, yeah, so my mom ended up calling me back and she was just explaining to me how she felt. She was sad and hurt, but honestly, I wasn't expecting that reaction because like I said, my mom had me doing, as I would consider, gay stuff growing up. So I always felt like she knew. And yeah, it was just like, when I did tell her, she was kind of like upset, and she was saying like, I've always protected you, and like when people would ask, I would always tell them no, which kind of stuck with me for a little while after that moment because I'm just like, well damn, who want to know, and why do they care? Right.
So all right, so let me ask you this. All right, so around that time that happened, like, how old were you? Like, what was your age?
Maybe like 21.
Okay, I mean,
I was young.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's like 21. You're practically an adult. You know, you can make your own decisions. I mean, you can actually live on your own.
And I think that's why at that time I felt comfortable enough to say, like, yeah, I'm here with a man. That's my boyfriend.
Right,
because
right.
I was like on my own. I wasn't living with her anymore.
So do you think? Okay, so let me ask you this. So do you think that her reaction would have been different from 21 to maybe 15 to 17? Do you think the reaction would have been worse? Because like 21, at the age of 21, you coming out to a family member or your parents, it's like, there's not much they can really do. You know what I'm saying? Because it's like, you're at that age where you can make your own decisions. You know, you're practically an adult. Versus being 15, 16, or even 17, you're kind of still at home with mom. You're still living with them. They still got that authority over you. So I guess my question would be, do you think your reaction would have been different? Her reaction would have been different from being 15 or 16 or 17, Mom, I'm gay, I'm out here with a man. Or, you know, versus you being 21, hey, Mom, I'm here with the dude. So do you think her reaction would have been like more upset about it?
I think honestly, I think she would have been more upset. I feel like maybe if I would have said it around that time, not saying my mom would have done this, but maybe they would have been trying to like make me change my mind, or
Right.
convince me this is just a phase or something like that.
Right. Which most of us always get,
Mm-hmm.
definitely from the straight folks, as we would say, that you're going through a phase.
Yeah, and I knew it wasn't a phase because, like I said, ever since I was young, like I've had chances to experiment with women, and even at a young age, I was not interested. Like it didn't arouse me. But saying all that to say, it's like yes, I didn't really have a coming out. Like I felt like my coming out was to my mom. Like once I told my mom, I didn't care what nobody else had to say. I didn't care what nobody else thought. I didn't care who knew. From that point on, I felt like I've always said, like, once I tell my mom that I'm gay, I'm free.
Yeah.
She was the only person I was holding it back from, really. Once I told her, I didn't care what nobody had to say.
Yeah. I guess I can kind of agree with you on that, because I think once I told my grandmother, I think half of a burden was lifted off, because I still had one more person to go through, which was my grandfather. But we'll get to that later on. But I get what you're saying about like you didn't care what anybody else, how anybody else felt, and then it's like that burden just lifting, just off your shoulders now. You know what I'm saying? So okay, makes sense.
And I feel like I've always like felt whispers and stuff like that of like people that may be like friends with my sister, or just anybody, people at school. There's always been whispers and people wondering if I was gay.
Now, was those whispers before you came out, or was those whispers like after you came out?
Before I came out.
Okay. Okay.
And it's like, again, I feel like my came out story to the public probably was when I've like ever posted a picture with me and somebody I was in a relationship with. That might have been the come out to them, but I've never like went online and been like, hey, you guys, I know I've never done nothing like that.
Okay.
Because I didn't feel like I owed nobody nothing except what's my mom.
Right.
But yeah, that's my coming out story. It wasn't really like nothing like crazy. I didn't have to tell like a huge family, because I felt like I said, once I told my mom, I didn't care who else cared. I didn't care if nobody liked it. Long as she loves me and still was there in my life, that's all that mattered. And yes, she was devastated at first, but she still came around. My mom loved me for whoever I am. And whoever I'm with, she loved them too. So, yeah, that's my coming out story.
Okay.
But I'm kind of proud of my coming out story, because I know some people's have been like way worse. And it hasn't been.
I mean, we hear stories, about how others come out and then, their family reject them. Yeah. And kicking them out. And, and I don't want to talk bad about like other people's parents, but to me, and this is me personally, this is my personal feelings about that. I can't even find the right words for that when a parent does that to their child, because now I feel like at that point it's more of, again, how I feel about this. This is my view on it. I just feel like you don't care about your child anymore. And I know some of y'all are gonna say, well, you have to understand how that parent feels. And I just feel like, as a parent, as an adult, as someone who gave birth, life, nurtured a child or this human being, you can just like, off of one thing, and just make up your mind to turn your back on your own child, your own loved one, because of something you don't understand, or something you choose not to understand, and I hate to hear stories like that, and I feel like, which I'm getting into my story soon, but I feel like the fact that your family or your mom, your sisters or cousins or aunts, and same thing with my grandmother, my grandfather, my mom, my dad, how they accepted that, and I always say we got it good, but it's just so heartbreaking when you hear how people come out to their family and they get disowned, they get kicked out the house, instead of that parent trying to understand situations like that, or understand what your child is going through, versus just saying, "Oh, you're gay, you're going to hell." And I'm gonna get into that part too later on into this segment, but yeah, that's a lot. Yeah. But anything else you want to add?
No, not really. I'm just grateful that my family was still loving and didn't disown me. Yeah. Not really.
Okay.
So let's get into your.
All right, let's get into it. Oh. All right. So my coming out story would be this was around the age of probably between the age of 17 and maybe I was nowhere near 21, I'll tell you that. So I was like maybe between 17, 18, maybe 19, one of those ages. And it was this, before that, I want to say like maybe like in junior high school, I had an attraction for men or for guys. And at the time, I'm just thinking like, it's just a phase. Because at the same time, I had a girlfriend at the time, but then I think we had just broken up. And, I was talking to other girls in junior high school, whatever. But in this far right back corner of my head, I always found the guy attractive. Now, you said in your story that you felt like you was born gay. Well, I don't feel like I was born gay. I just feel like I just gravitated to liking or find myself being attracted to a man more versus a female. But yeah, I think my my attraction for men started in junior high school. And let's just say I didn't act on it until, okay, I lied. No, yeah, I didn't act on it until high school. Met some guy, and then, things happened in the stairwell of high school. Right. So, and that how that started. But my coming out story would be, me being like 18, 19, 17, somewhere around there, 18. And the first guy I ever dated, I brought him over for Thanksgiving. And I kind of introduced him to my family as my boyfriend.
Before telling your family you like guys.
Before telling them, wait, hold on, was it before? No. Okay, no, sorry. Oh God, I got my stories all mixed up. Okay, so before that, wait, how did this happen? Oh my God, I'm so lost now. Okay. No, I pulled my grandma to the side. This happened first. I pulled my grandma to the side and told her that I was gay. Because I was like, man, I gotta talk to you about something, And she was, yeah, talk to me, you talk to me about anything. And I told her, I opened up to her and I was like, I like men. And then I can remember, I can like see it as if it was yesterday. Her face. I would say she was not happy whatsoever. She was not happy at all.
Let me ask you this. Did you go to her because you thought maybe she would not be upset about it at that time?
Okay, so No.
And I got another question.
Wait, okay. I went to her and I told her because my first guy that I dated, I was like really in love with him. And like, I just felt like, okay, I want to be open. Like I want who I'm in love with to be open, out in public. And I want my family to know like who holds my heart at that time. And I just felt like if they know, I had nothing to hide or anything like that. So at the time when I told her about my sexuality, I didn't mention the first guy I dated. And she was very upset. She was really upset about it. But
that's another question. I'm sorry.
What? Go ahead.
Was your brother out at this time, or had he not told her?
No, my brother was out. He was out at this time.
You can continue. That's all I want.
Yeah. So I kind of see where you're going with the story because like your sister and
because she was definitely out.
Right. Yeah, my brother was already out. I think my brother came out like years ago, years ago. Okay, I'm not trying to throw this out there, but years ago. But I think what was upsetting more was because it's like, okay, you already have a gay grandson, and now you have another gay grandson, but he's much younger, and I'm pretty sure she thought it was probably a phase too. But she didn't take it too well. She didn't take it too well. Never kicked me out the house. But I think it was more shocking than anything. And then we have to understand that, like your mom, my grandmother, my father, my grandfather, they grew up in times where a lot of this stuff wasn't like really out there how it is now, and it just wasn't accepted. Now, coming out to my grandmother was like easy. That was easy. My grandfather, for me, was the hard part because of our relationship. That was my grandfather. Those who don't know, he passed away about 3 years ago. 3 years ago. So he was my role model, my best friend, my dad. Like he was everything to me. So at that time, opening up to him about my sexuality was hard because I just felt like I wasn't going to be accepted by him. And I honestly do feel if he didn't accept my sexuality, like I feel like my life would have been over. Like, cause how can someone who practically raised you, and somebody you look to as a dad, just disown you? That would hurt big time. But so my grandma was like, so when I told my grandma was like, you gotta talk to your grandfather about it. And I was like, yeah, I know, I am. And I guess I at the time had a time frame where I was gonna tell him. But let's just say my grandmother jumped the gun, and she ended up telling him. And the way I know she told him because my grandfather was going to Home Depot, like it was yesterday. And he said, son, come ride with me. And I'm like, okay. Now, at the time, I'm like, me and my grandfather, we hang out all the time. We did. At the time, we always did hang out. And I would always ride with him anywhere. So we rode to Home Depot. We was riding to Home Depot. And I knew something was wrong. And I knew he knew because it was a quiet-ass ride for like a good 15, 20 minutes. I mean, dead silent. And normally my grandfather talking about something, about fishing, about his car at the time, or whatever the case may be. And I'm like, wow, like it's really quiet. So I wasn't gonna say nothing. I was gonna just probably just like wait until he start talking. So after like a good 15, 20 minutes, he goes, son, I just want you to know I love you. And can't nothing separate us. Can nothing you say, do, who you love. None of that changes anything. You're still my son. And once he said that, that sealed the deal. Now, I wasn't like out there telling everybody, I like dudes. It was none of that. But just like you said earlier, I didn't care who knew. I didn't care who knew. But just to know that my grandfather, my grandmother allowed me to open that door and allowed me to be me, sealed the deal. And I was like, yeah, I know, I'm happy. You know, like I'm really, really happy. And before anybody in my family really knew, the only person I really knew about my sexuality really was my best friend, and I think my little sister knew. Like I told her and my best friend was the only two people that actually knew. But then my auntie April, I think she knew because she knew before I even told anybody too. Because I remember one day I had went out, and she asked me what club I went to. And those of you that know and familiar about New York City clubs, it was this club called Escalitas. That's probably shut down right now. I have to look that up. But that's probably shut down. But that was the gay club I was at. I was always going to. And I told my aunt that's the club I went to. And her reaction was like, oh, okay. And then that was it. You know, she never asked me any questions. But years down the line, she said she knew because of Escalitas. Which I'm going to look that club up because I'm going to see if that club, I think it's shut down, but most likely probably shut down. I'll just look it out. But,
okay, I got 2 questions.
Okay.